This episode is part of an ongoing story. If you're new here, you might want to start with episode 1. Previously, on what happens between the scenes.
You're a talented actor, Lee. I can't tell the difference from when you're putting on a show and when you meant it. His arrogant grin almost set her off until he asked, "And you think I can always tell the difference with you?"
And now, the story continues.
Unable to hide her sheepish smile, he said, "Uh-huh, see?" Only the thing she couldn't say was that it probably felt the same, because for her, nothing had changed. She always meant it. They practiced for several hours and then turned on a movie and dove into the cake. Chris took the broken chair, and Lee sat on the opposite end of the couch from Emma, giving her room to stretch out and rest her head on the arm. When she heard both men laugh, she bolted upright. "I snored, didn't I?" she asked sleepily. "A little," said Lee. "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I better get home," she said. "Don't drive home, sleepy Emma. Just stay," said Chris. "You can sleep in my room. I'll take the couch." "Oh, I don't want to put you out," she said. "Seriously, it's fine. Tell her, Lee." Lee rubbed her ankle with the tip of his fingers. "You should stay," Lee said, "but you can have my room." "Yeah, and then Kira will show up. You'll have hell to pay even though nothing happened," said Chris. He'd made a significant point, so Emma gave in to staying in Chris's room when the movie had finished. When she closed her eyes again, she hadn't fallen back to sleep when Chris warned Lee. "Man, you need to be careful with her," Chris said. "What are you talking about?" Lee asked. "She is crazy about you." "She's just really sweet. That's her personality." "Dude, you're always on me for not dating anyone seriously, but the girls I meet aren't serious either. I'm telling you, if any woman I dated looked at me the way she looks at you, I might give it a shot." Emma shuffled around to signal she was waking to end their conversation. Still pretending she hadn't heard, she excused herself to the bathroom to wash off her makeup. Chris's words ate at her. Had she been looking at Lee like a doe-eyed teenager? If so, she hadn't meant to. At least Lee didn't seem to believe so, according to his response about her being a sweet person. Making a note to watch how she interacted with Lee, she told Chris she wouldn't make it through the movie and would lie down. Trying not to think about what likely went on in his bed or how long it had been since he'd washed the sheets, she collapsed onto his covers. He had walked in with her long enough to grab a pillow, leaving her to sleep in the unfamiliar surroundings. Though not next to her, sleeping under the same roof as Lee felt safe again. With her eyes closed, she remembered the moment she'd stamped into her mind the night Lee had never let her go. After her long day, sleep came faster than she suspected. Sometime in the night, something brushed against the door. Had Chris forgotten about the arrangement and planned to sleep in his bed? Emma lay there with her eyes open, wishing Lee would walk through the door. No other sounds emerged, and no one came in. It took her 2 hours to fall back asleep, and she'd spent the time reliving in her mind every kiss she'd shared with Lee, even the one that made her so angry. When morning arrived, her muscles reminded her she'd used the weight machines for the first time the day before, shrieking at her with every movement. Shuffling into the kitchen, she found Chris drinking coffee. "You're up early," she said. "Yeah, I have work. I'm glad I didn't have to wake you to go in and get my stuff. Did you sleep okay?" She nodded and politely asked for a coffee cup. Chris's brew tasted unexpectedly delicious. He'd just stepped into the shower when Lee screamed out her name. Assuming he'd summoned her, she went to his door. "Lee?" When he didn't respond, she thought perhaps he'd changed his mind about whatever he meant to ask her. She stood there a moment more, waiting to see if he might answer her. Startlingly, he jerked the door open, huffing and clenching his fists. His contorted face appeared as though he'd been prepping for a boxing match. When his eyes met hers, the anger turned to alarm. He reached for her, pulling her into a desperate grip and tucking his head into her sore shoulder. Emma sensed his vulnerability. She hugged him back without prodding for information. They clung to one another for what seemed like forever before he calmed down enough to breathe more steadily. Only then did she ask, "Bad dream?" He nodded without looking up. "About me?" He nodded again, and she stroked the back of his head for comfort. Unable to stop herself, she softly planted her lips on the side of his face. "It's okay. I'm okay," she whispered. The water turned off in the shower, and Lee finally let her go. Evidently, he didn't want Chris observing his current mood. He kept his face down where she couldn't see his eyes and gently closed the door behind him in his room. Emma returned to the kitchen and resumed drinking her coffee, slightly stupefied. By the time she finished, Chris came back dressed and ready to leave.
"I'll head out too," she said.
"I'm blocking you anyway." Chris tapped at Lee's door to let him know they both were heading out. He came out with the phone to his ear and gave Emma a casual side hug. From the looks of him, no one would suspect they'd had the encounter in the hall, but he still wouldn't look her in the eyes. Feeling somewhat deflated that she hadn't gotten to speak to him about what happened, Emma drove home, going over a dozen scenarios that the dream could have been. Whatever he'd seen in his mind upset him greatly. That night, when she climbed into her own bed again, she got a text from him. "Are you home?" "Yep, just about to go to sleep." "You locked up?" "Of course, I always do." "You gonna tell me what the dream was?" "Not yet."
Thanks for listening to What Happens Between the Scenes. You can find this story and future episodes on YouTube by searching Laura Purple Butterfly. You can also find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts by searching the Purple Butterfly Archives.